Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. After months of furious campaigning, the US election has finally arrived. Tonight, US time, voters go to the polls to choose between returning former President Donald Trump or making Vice President Kamala Harris the first female leader of the United States. It's been an extraordinary campaign when you consider that it began with Trump taking on Joe Biden. Since then, we've had a president withdrawing from their campaign, assassination attempts, allegations about people eating dogs, photo ops in McDonald's restaurants and garbage trucks, appearances on 60 Minutes, Saturday Night Live and Joe Rogan's podcast, and countless polls showing which way people are going to vote. And here we are at the end of the campaign, with most of those polls too close to call. Bruce Wolpe is a senior fellow, non-resident at the United States Studies Center. He has worked with the Democrats in Congress during President Barack Obama's first term. Last year, he published Trump's Australia, which looks at the potential for Donald Trump to return to the presidency and what that means for Australia. Bruce, welcome back to Fear and Greed.
Hey, last episode before the election returns come in. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah. How would you characterize this campaign?
Well, it's just deadlocked. You've seen poll after poll. I've had a dozen people come up to me in the past month saying, I get up at 5:30 and every morning to check the polls. I mean, this is how riveted and wrapped Australians are. There's no clear, neither of them have a clear lead. At the national level, they're tied 49-48, 47-47 in the poll. But that isn't what, as everyone knows, that isn't what elects a president. It's the Electoral College. But even in those 7 states that are seem to be up for grabs, it's tie after tie after tie, and not even a difference in regional. Like the northern industrial states, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, are kind of mirrored by Georgia, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada in just being dead even. So there is no clear front runner. The turnout is going to be important. I do sense that Harris is closing quite strongly, and I sense real confidence in their camp that she's going to win this thing.
Bruce, I don't mean to be ignorant because I am not a citizen of the US, but for many of us that are watching this election, we just wonder, well, as Michelle Obama, I think it was, put it, why is this even a race? Why are so many Americans happy to put their trust in a president who has Donald Trump's attributes? I think for many of us, that's kind of astounding. And I'm not even being pro Kamala Harris here. It's more just to have someone like that, to watch it from afar. We don't get it.
I think there are 2 threads here. The Kamala Harris thread is just as you outlined. It's time to turn the page on him. He's been with us for 8 years. We don't want him in our future. He's old. He's unhinged. He's been called a fascist by 2 people who worked with him really closely, his chief of staff and the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And she's making this referendum on Trump. But, as you know, though, the number one issue in people's minds generally when you have a national election is how am I doing economically and what is the future outlook? And the lived experience of Americans is not good. And the country is tense and unhappy. Between 60 and 70% say the country's in the wrong direction. That's an indication of change. But since Biden was elected, the basket of goods that people go to get every week in, week out, plus petrol, plus insurance, is up 10 to 40%. And if this is a referendum on the election, on the economy, and how I'm doing, and how my family's doing, and economic security issues, that is a big driver for Trump. But what he also has, as we've talked before, he has a base of like 45% of the nation that's stuck with him over 8 years, who feel that they want the trade wars to protect jobs. They want America disengaged from the world. They want America to be great again, and they want protection. They don't want to be flooded with immigrants and things that they bring, the other. So those 2 things, really an economic impetus plus these cultural value issues that are very powerful drivers. Immigration is so big in Australia. It has been for over 20 years since the time. We know the potency of them. Trump puts them together. And that's why it's so competitive.
What about the campaigns? Incredible period since July when Kamala Harris became the nominee. Have they been deserving, or have they been up to the standard that a campaign should be? Have the American people been served by these campaigns?
I think Trump has faltered over the past month. I think his campaign rallies have become kind of difficult, hysterical in some ways, just the things that comes out of his mouth. but his fans come. I mean, it is a movement, and he is the leader of the movement. I think Harris, because of the circumstances, coming into it so late, the incumbent president standing aside, that has not happened before, this close to an election in American history, and with no opposition, the party uniting, him endorsing her, potential competitors also getting behind her, sort of an immaculate conception of a presidential nominee. She entered the race with optimism and the politics of joy, but she's ending the race with really a very strong case as to why we have to go forward in her direction and not go backwards with Trump and all of his grievances and everything that he's inflicted on the country. And I think she's made steady progress, and I think she continues to make progress in these crucial last days.
Stay with me, Bruce. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Bruce Wolpe from the United States Studies Centre. Okay, so within 12 hours or so, the polls will start opening in the US. What can we expect? How long do you think it will be before we can find a winner? And I'm guessing that Trump won't concede, no matter what. Harris may. How long do you think will it be?
I think Trump will actually claim victory early on election night, just because in order to establish a rebuttable presumption, I won, and they're trying to steal it from me, and it's all rigged and so forth. In 2020, it took until the weekend after the election for a final result to come in as the counting proceeded. And, the United States doesn't have Anthony Green, but it does have the Associated Press. And the Associated Press is the agency of record to make the final calls. And people understand that. There are those states to watch as to what the trend is as counting comes in tonight, tomorrow. And I would look at Pennsylvania, although it could be a little bit slower. But Georgia and North Carolina, those are two states that have kind of edged towards Trump. They're in the South. Georgia has gone back and forth. North Carolina has voted relatively reliably for Trump. If Harris picks up those states, she's going to win this election. And so I think that'll be an early sign as to where it is. And then the issue is, even if Trump is saying, I won, it's all rigged, the issue is as the reality of a Harris victory sinks in, if indeed that unfolds, what do other Republicans start saying? Are they going to fight Trump's fight all over again, or are they going to say we just got to get on with it? And the Republicans will do well. I believe they will take the Senate. So I think all those things come to play. But we could have a pretty early indication on election night.
So you mentioned a couple of states there, North Carolina and Georgia. Pennsylvania is another big one. There's interesting polling out of Iowa, though it may be an outlier, that kind of suggested that it was more Democrat-leaning than expected. But what are the other? I mean, that's another state we need to look at. What else? Who else?
Well, actually, what Iowa picked up, and then what other people are just reporting, Harris has really mobilized women on the issue of reproductive health rights. And more than half the electorate, 52%, is women and will be women. And it's an electric issue. And it is responsible for, people were predicting 2 years ago the Republicans would do really well in the midterm elections. They didn't. And it was driven by this issue of abortion rights in the aftermath of the repeal of Roe v. Wade. They've also seen, I've just seen, the campaign makes Delphic statements as to what's going on, so as not to be too braggart about it. Young people apparently really are voting too. So these constituencies that Biden had and she wants to in 2020, she's rebuilding that coalition and maybe even exceeding it. And if that is absolutely the case, she will be in a strong position.
So let's say we get a result within a week. How long do you think it'll take before things start to happen? Well, I suppose the president doesn't take the job until January 6th, so that's probably quite a stupid question. But
No, but the question is really the margin. I mean, the question is, when does the legitimacy of the results sink in, right? Or when are we faced with chaos, possible violence, and all sorts of things? I think the degree of instability is related to the degree of the margin. So the greater the margin, the less instability. And so we'll just have to see how close it is. But, the past two elections have been decided by a few thousand votes in a very small number of states. And that really puts everything on edge. That could well happen again. A lot of people are expecting it. We'll just have to watch it unfold.
Bruce, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Less fear, less greed after election night. I'll predict that.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. That was Bruce Wolpe, Senior Fellow Non-Resident at the United States Studies Centre. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, business news for people who make their own decisions. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.